Hello everyone, welcome to Cycle, a program focused on Mongolian business and economy. My name is Batsir Namshir. The opening of the National Privatization Fund was a significant event in the Mongolian financial market. It was actually a milestone in the history of the stock market of the country. The National Privatization Fund launched its operation officially last week. This is Mongolia's first mutual investment fund.
This type of fund is a closed-end fund, which means that the fund will issue a fixed number of units, and the units will be traded on the stock exchange. So the investors can buy and sell the units on the stock exchange during the trading days.
The fund will aim to raise funds from the public, make investment to foreign and domestic stock markets, and distribute profit to its investors.
The fund will raise about 4.75 billion tugrux from public. So the profits generated from such investment activities will be distributed to the investors as a dividend.
Executive Director of the Mongolian Stock Exchange, Mr. Altay, noted at the opening of the National Privatization Fund that Mongolia's stock market has offered only two types of products, namely stock and bond, in the past 30 years. While this is the first time in the history of the stock market that an investment fund offers its unit rights to the public. As the citizens making investment to the investment fund, they will have a number of advantages, such as reducing risk and being provided with professional management. I hope that many new investment funds will be founded following the fund that's offering its unit rights to public, and it would develop and activate the stock market. Investors are able to purchase unit rights of the fund at the Mongolian Stock Exchange through their security companies.
Any person, any retail investor can invest in this fund by subscribing for this unit through their brokerage company. As you might know, that Mongolian Stock Exchange has 54 brokerage companies, so any person can open an investment account at the brokerage company and subscribe the units.
The fund has issued 50 million pieces of unit rights and is offering its 95% or 47,500,000 pieces to the public at 100 Mongolian tugrux per unit right.
Currently, there are very few professional investors in our market. It will increase the participation of professional investors in our market. Professional investors will create long-term assets in our market, and they can be a long-term investor. So it's very crucial for our market development.
The fund aims to raise 4,750 million Mongolian tugrux from the market, and purchase of unit right will close on October the 16th. Mongolian Startup Showcase 2020 was organized by Angel Investors Association last Friday. The event aimed to connect Mongolian entrepreneurs with the investors and venture capitalists.
So today, Mongolian Angel Investors Association is putting together the Mongolian Startup Showcase 2020. And this is a very special event because, again, it showcases the Mongolian startups to investors in Mongolia. And as well as it teaches the startups how to properly pitch to investors. And I think we got very, very good attendance from the investors who are interested in investing into startups and also becoming a venture capital fund.
A total of 10 startups, namely Social Technology, Geru, Nelearn.mn, Defav, Nomad Toys, Procraft, Cloudprint, Technomad Gaming, Etsy Bitsy and Beer Night Studio.
10 startups today are all tech startups focused on expanding their business models and finding the scalable startups to different markets.
During the event, they got the chance to introduce and promote their products and services to the investors.
So the investors are mostly individuals, but we have some corporates, CVCs are participating in the event as well. And the main purpose of the CVCs are they're looking for startups who will contribute to their group companies, but as well as looking for financial return in the future. Again, venture capital is something very new in Mongolia. So with that said, many of the individual investors who are willing to become venture capitalists are learning from the experience and also learn to cooperate with the CVCs in this event. Today we had one of the leading incubator and accelerator venture builder called START has signed a memorandum with one of the venture capital fund called Secretos. These two companies are going to develop the ecosystem and further enhance the network for startups into different markets.
Mongolian Startup Showcase 2019 was organized in Malaysia and Singapore last year. A total of 27 startup companies took part in the last year's event, jointly organized by the Mongolian MC in Singapore and Mongolian Start Company. According to the report by the World Bank, only 1 cent out of every dollar in mineral revenues Mongolia has generated over the past 20 years has been saved for future generations. It shows that Mongolia should use its mineral wealth to invest in people and institutions. The World Bank in Mongolia, in partnership with the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Budget, held a panel discussion on the conclusion of the report, Mines and Minds, Leveraging Natural Wealth to Invest in People and Institutions, and recommendations related to it. Mining sector becomes main leverage to broaden economy, intensify production, and move forward the country's prosperity. Nonetheless, economy is becoming overly dependent on the mining sector and vulnerability is increasing. For example, mining sector was making up 42% of the total export of Mongolia in 2000, while it increased to 89% by 2019. Furthermore, mining sector takes up 1/4 of Mongolia's economy and its revenue makes up 1/4 of budget income, reports the World Bank. Mine represents Mongolia's present, while mines, human and institutional development are its future. Therefore, investment should be made into encouraging human development, World Bank senior economist for Mongolia Pascal said. In September 2020, the Bank of Mongolia purchased 2.3 tons of precious metals, and its gross purchases totaled 17.1 tons in 2020. This is an increase of 6 tons from the same period of the previous year. Out of 17.1 tons of precious metals, 15.4 tons were gold and 1.7 tons were white silver. In September, the Bank of Mongolia's branches in Darkhanol and Bayangol provinces bought 123.9 kilograms and 154.5 kilograms of precious metals, respectively. As of September 2020, precious metals purchases totaled 1.4 tons from the two regions. The average price of Bank of Mongolia's purchase of 1 gram of gold was 176,494 Mongolian tugrus in September. In January 2020, the Bank of Mongolia purchased 3.5 tons of precious metals. That was the highest level in recent years. In February, the Bank of Mongolia bought 953 kilograms of precious metals, and in March, 830 kilograms, which was the lowest level of the year. The purchase of the precious metals increased to 1.4 tons in April, 1.7 tons in May, and reached 2.3 tons in June. The Bank of Mongolia bought 2.2 tons of precious metals in July, 1.7 tons in August, and 2.3 tons in September. The gross purchases of precious metals were 2.1 tons in 2010, 3.3 tons in 2011, 3.3 tons in 2012, and 6 tons in 2013. In 2014, it doubled to 12.7 tons. The Bank of Mongolia purchased 15.1 tons of precious metals in 2015, 18.3 tons in 2016, 20 tons in 2017, and 21.9 tons in 2018, which was the record high. In 2019, it decreased to 15.2 tons, and as of September 2020, it reached 17.1 tons. The Asian Development Bank and Ulaanbaatar Flour LLC and Tambok Foods LLC signed a $15 million loan to support the wheat supply chain in Mongolia during the coronavirus pandemic. The amount comprised of a $10 million assistance to UBF and $5 million for TBF will deliver liquidity support for the company's operations, which will help sustain the livelihoods of thousands of Mongolian wheat farmers and farm workers, in addition to the employees of UBF and TBF. Wheat is the primary agricultural crop in Mongolia, so reinforcing the supply chain to cope with disruptions caused by the pandemic will secure the incomes of many workers in farmers, factories and retail outlets, said ADB Country Director for Mongolia, Mr. Ravi Ramachandran. The two companies are part of the Tauntala Group, one of the country's largest diversified business groups. UBF is a leading wheat miller with 35% of the wheat flour market in 2019. TBF operates major fast food chains and is a key player in the food delivery industry. According to the first 9 months of 2020, Mongolia traded with 141 countries, and the total trade turnover reached $9.1 billion, of which $5.1 billion were exports and $3.9 billion were imports. Total trade turnover decreased by $1.5 billion, or 13.9%, of which exports decreased by $799 million, or 13.4%, and imports decreased by $670.7 million, or 14.6%, compared to the same period of the previous year. In September, exports and imports reached to $668.2 million and $474.9 million, respectively. Compared to the previous month, exports decreased by $22 million, or 3.2%, and imports declined by $36.3 million, or 7.1%. The foreign trade balance was in surplus of $1.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2020, while it was in surplus of $1.3 billion in the first 9 months of 2019, decreased by $128.3 million from the same period of the previous year. The trade with China reached $5.2 billion in the first 9 months of 2020, making up 57.8% of the total trade turnover. Bituminous coal and copper concentrates accounted for 37.2% and 30.8% of the total exports to China, while gold accounted for 99.8%, 57.4%, and 58.6% of goods exported to Switzerland, Singapore, and the United Kingdom, respectively. In the first 9 months of 2020, 37.2% of the total imports were from China, 26.1% from Russia, 7.7% from Japan, 4.3% from the Republic of Korea, and 4.3% from the USA, accounting for 79.7% of the total import. 50.2% of the total imports from Russia were petroleum products. 58.6% of the total imports from Japan were cars, and 6.1% of the total imports from China were electricity. 7.7% were trucks, and 86.2% were imports of other products from China. Exports of mineral products, textiles and textile articles, natural or cultured stones, and precious metals jewelry made up 97.2% of the total export. On the other hand, 63.5% of the total imports was mineral products, machinery, equipment, electric appliances, transport vehicle, and its spare parts and food products. Well, this has been Cycle. Thank you for staying with us, and see you next time.